Niger State Governor Abubakar Bello has debunked a video circulating on social media which claimed that Boko Haram terrorists are forcefully converting people to Islam in the state. The video in circulation has been shared by many on Twitter, including Nigeria's former aviation minister Femi Fani-Kayode, who says it happened in terrorist-captured areas by Boko Haram in Niger State. In his reaction, Governor Bello says the video originated from Niger Republic and not from Nigeria. Not a sad one, I should say. Sundu?
Well, I don't know. For me, it's neither here nor there where this video originated from. Even if it was from Niger Republic, it could be in Nigeria that this has happened, because we all know the story of Leah Sharibu. If a person's religion was of no consequence to these terrorists, she would have been released with her schoolmates. She was not, because she refused to renounce her faith, which suggests to me that there are exercises of forceful compulsion going on within our borders. And you have these murderers, these terrorists who don't obey their own holy book, which is firmly against murder, which is also firmly against forceful conversion. It says in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256, al-Baqarah, there is no compulsion in religion. However, we have seen that that's just not the case. Yes, it's a surah. It's a surah. It's actually in the Quran. So this is the thing. And it's so clear that these so-called Islamist people are actually not Muslims at all. They have nothing to do with Islam. So for me, whether or not this was in Nigeria does not mean it cannot be in Nigeria tomorrow. We have seen, you remember, I was watching you that day on Boxing Day talking about how Christians were beheaded. You'll recall that really macabre story. So it's entirely possible that it happens here. However, I do appreciate what the governor of Niger State is trying to do, trying to douse the tension that exists in this country. You'll recall a succession of calls from various high-ranking political office holders calling on the political elite to slow down and simmer down on the sort of baiting, the ethnic baiting, the religious baiting, trying to prevent this country from falling apart. So I think that's what the governor of Niger State is trying to do, trying to step in to say that is not happening in Nigeria. But it does not mean it cannot happen in Nigeria. There's fundamentals that do need to be addressed.
Well, I agree with you absolutely that this fits into the dominant narrative about, one, the persecution of Christians and persons of other faiths in Nigeria, as has been acknowledged by many international observers, and also the Christian Association of Nigeria and others, your other stakeholders within the country. Now, secondly, another issue to note here has to do with materials that we see on social media. And you have spoken a lot about this, that people should be careful about things that are circulated on the social media. One of the reasons why at a time there was this big debate about social media legislation, because you could receive something by WhatsApp and then you circulate it. And in fact, the origin, the accuracy, the correctness of it, the authenticity of it may be in doubt. Now, in this particular case, this video was circulated mostly via WhatsApp. And the governor is saying, no, this is not in Niger State, it's in Niger. Well, I think if maybe some people saw some connection there in the spelling. Niger and Niger, the difference is simply in terms of pronunciation. But in terms of the dominant narrative and what has been happening, this fits into the picture. However, let us note that this same governor is the one who alerted the attention of the international community to the crisis that he faces in Niger State. Now, it's been said about him that most of the time these days he's in Abuja, where he probably thinks that he's safer, but that's unverified. But he himself came out publicly to inform the public that 42 communities in his state had been taken over by Boko Haram, and that in one village, Kaure, that the Boko Haram had hoisted their flag, and that would be, within a 2-hour distance from Abuja. He was the one that came forward to say that. The following week, after he made that disclosure, we were told that a military base in Munya, I think it's called Munya, I don't know the correct pronunciation, local government area, also of Niger State, was sacked by bandits and terrorists, and vehicles were destroyed, and the military, they could not immediately summon the capacity to respond to that emergency. Only last week, this same governor called the State Security Council emergency meeting. And at that meeting, well, we've not been given the full details, but at the end of it, one of the persons who was at that meeting was telling Nigerians that both the state government and the federal government will do whatever is possible to ensure that there is security. It was on account of the seizure of 42 communities in Niger State and 50 villages in another neighboring state that, in fact, members of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, earlier last week, also called for a declaration of state of emergency with regard to the security situation in Nigeria. In fact, some members of the National Assembly went as far as even saying that maybe the National Assembly should go on recess. So I think the focus of the narrative, while Governor Sani Bello is trying to determine the authenticity or otherwise of a particular video, I think he should focus more on how he can liaise, with the federal government, not for his own personal security, in case he feels safer in Abuja, but how, his state can become safe. He, as chief security officer, can liaise with the relevant security agencies to ensure the security of lives and property in his environment and to contribute ideas to the larger task of making Nigerians safe for everybody. So whether he says this video is not from Niger, it is from Niger. Okay, what if there is another attack in any of those 42 communities or any of the local governments in Niger State tomorrow? Will he not say, well, this is the truth, this has happened here? But I think religion is quite sensitive. That may be another reason why he thought it necessary to say this is not Niger, this is a video from Niger. Well, I hope they were speaking French in that tape. I've not double-checked the tape myself.
I didn't hear a word of French.
Yeah, because if it was Niger, they probably would be speaking, English. They will be speaking French. And Niger, in any case, is a predominantly Muslim country. But the bottom line of it is that we face a serious situation. Nobody is safe. Even traditional worshippers are not safe. Even Christians are not safe. Even Muslims are not safe. Yeah. Even priests and shamanists, all these necromancers, they are not safe. This is the reality of our lives. And that's why the president is calling on the United States and the United Kingdom to come and help us relocate military operation, military barracks near the theater of operation, as we've been told. Well, whether we like it or not, we have to worry about security.
I mean, very spot on, Dr. Abati, and the comments made by Tundu. I should say this, and I'll reiterate it over and over again. We have fire on our ceiling, and we're still sleeping in the house. We have fire on our ceiling, and we're still sleeping in the house. We have a country today where you are not safe. You can't go out anywhere, including the parts that we feel, oh, this part might be safe. I stay in Lagos, I stay in this, I stay in that. But the truth has to be said. You're not safe anywhere. Insecurity is on the rise. There is no day we open up the national dailies and we don't see stories, myriads of insecurity, challenges we face every day. And it takes a collective effort to fight insecurity. But the question is, are we ready to come together to fight insecurity, to look beyond party lines, to take objective criticisms and not make it about somebody came to look for a contract we didn't give them? That's where we stand as a nation today. And we must all come together to fight this, to do what is necessary. Because in the time of crisis, we are all statesmen. This is not the time to play partisan politics. Not the time, I repeat. Thank you so much. And we keep praying for the country to do well. That's all on news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotu Sodiri, Michael Wilson, Adesu Amoroa, Aaron Akiri, give us updates on Africa, COVID-19, global business, sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News Channel. Funny enough, it's a public holiday today. Goodness me. That's what you get for being on TV and in the media. Our dependable Rotus is here to give us African business update. Rotus, it's a public holiday today. Funny enough, I mean, it's just something.
Hey, we're here every day, Rufai. We're here every day. Good morning to you, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning to all our viewers, and happy public holiday to everyone. Look, we just as we exclusively broke on Friday, we stated that Honeywell Group indeed had an exposure to First Bank. This is continuing, of course, where we left off on Friday. The company has put out a statement. They put it out just yesterday, essentially confirming the exclusive story that we broke on Friday, which is that they've reduced gradually their exposure to First Bank. That is the credit lines that they have. So they put this statement out. It was very necessary for them to put this statement out because of the fallout of everything that's taking place after the central bank sent a notice to First Bank saying that they had to, regularize the lien on the shares of Oba-Tudeko with respect to, as far as collateral is concerned, to those First Bank loans. So they put this statement out. They say, look, they've been in business, for 50 years. They've got 10,000 employees. They've had a relationship with First Bank since 1972. They said that they said the lien is there. They said the lien on the shares is there. They said that their credit lines have been performing. None of them are non-performing with respect to the loan that they have with First Bank. And then they also confirmed about a 30% reduction in exposure over the last 2 years. They also reassured the markets, that the company is running smoothly. They talked about their CSR and everything else. It's necessary because, also about Tudeko as well. They also, respect to him and, his exposure as far as insider loans are concerned. They said that, look, all that's fine, that they followed due process with the central bank and with First Bank. The relationship is good and so on and so forth. It was necessary for them to put this out because if you look at the top 5 losers on Friday on the stock exchange. Remember, I said that we shouldn't just look at First Bank. First Bank dropped about 6.7% on Thursday or so, but it stabilized on Friday. So there's Honeywell Flour to your left. So real quick, NCR was the top loser. It's a technology company. Van Leer makes steel and plastic drums. And there's Honeywell. They dropped by 9.3% on Friday. So, the Honeywell Flour Mills, which is a flour milling company and part of the Honeywell Group. So the stock, unfortunately, has taken a bit of a beating since this came out. I remember I said, let's just look at First Bank. We just need to look at Honeywell. So it was one of the top 5 losers. Sonio Assurance is, of course, in insurance business. Unity Bank is a bank. But to focus specifically on Honeywell, now that they've put out this statement, one has to now see exactly how the markets are going to respond. Actually, today is a public holiday, so the markets are closed. So we'll see how the markets respond tomorrow when the markets reopen. But again, they're trying to calm the waters. Just First Bank also put out their statement, I think, on Friday as well. Honeywell now has put out their statement, so we'll see how the markets react. To Timipre Silva, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. He was he gave a keynote address at the graduation award ceremony of the Offshore Technology Institute at the University of Port Harcourt, and which I believe is his alma mater. And while he was there, he also spoke to reporters, and he said that the subsidy cannot continue, that Nigerians again brace for higher fuel prices. Now, of course, this is him recognizing that the federal government and Labour are, continuing their deliberations. But I have to say, he said this before, and I believe last month he also said that there wouldn't be any pump price increase in April. And prior to April, in February, he told us the same thing, that Nigerians should prepare for higher prices and that the subsidy is unsustainable. So he's kind of gone back and forth a bit. Maybe he's trying to keep an eye on what's going on with the federal government negotiations with Labour. But again, in Port Harcourt, at this convocation, at this graduation ceremony, he again stated it. Now, for the NNPC, their finances continue to be constrained by the rising crude oil prices. Crude oil prices come down a little bit because of what's been going on in India and the issues with COVID and so on. And India is a big, large, consumer of energy and importer of oil. In fact, India takes a lot of Nigeria's oil, replaced the United States as one of the largest importers of Nigeria's oil. But you've covered this already. The NNPC sent a letter, stating that they wouldn't be able to, that's as with respect to the Federation accounts and the Accountant General, that for the month of May, they wouldn't be able to remit funds to the Federation accounts because of the pressure of subsidy. So just once again, Group Managing Director Mele Kyari has said that the pump price is 162. It should be about 234. The difference of 72. If you estimate around 60 million liters consumed, there's some, talk about that not being, perfectly accurate. But at that estimate of 60 million liters, you're looking at a subsidy of 4.23 billion a day, which comes out to 132 billion a month. So their finances continue to be constrained. We have to see what that outcome of Labour. Labour again has said that the refineries need to work before they can allow pump price to be to increase. So the conversation continues.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Abati?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh. So, thank you, Dr. Abati. So, real quickly, for me, there are many sides to this. We've gone through this path before. We need refineries to work. Have they worked in the past? No. Have we not put money to do the turnaround? Did they work?
Right. Didn't work.
Did we not bring out the financial reports and show the world on these refineries, and we saw how badly run they were as businesses? We've pumped another 1.5 billion. Obviously, we shouted and we screamed, but nobody listened to us. They went ahead. They've released the 1.5 billion. We'll see when that will work. And secondly, we have not, for me, it's quite very nebulous, even the calculation of the subsidy. For the sake of public debate, the NNPC should come out and show us how it even calculates the subsidy and how much product it brings in every time. Let us see it. And will the refinery, when it finally works, cushion the effect of what we need? Right. And the grand question is, how did we go from a country that used to churn out most of its oil locally to a country that is largely dependent on imports now? Those are the fundamental questions we should ask. And what Timi Silva is doing is what they call teasing. In advertising, you want to bring out a campaign, then you start to tease people a month or two before now to whet their appetites. The hammer will still fall because this is not sustainable. But my question will always be, have we been sincere in this process?
Well,
the NNPC should take a national page on the National Daily, break down the calculation of how they calculate the subsidy. Let us see it there. Let people inquire. Go ahead, Rotus.
Mele Kyari, again, he's been as transparent as possible. And it's a straightforward calculation. They are chesting the difference between what the pump price we're paying at 162, and so it's here, and what it should be at 234. So the difference is what amounts to that estimates of about 130 billion a month. So that somebody is taking the pain for that difference, and their finances just can't continue. So I think he's done well. He's tried to be as honest as possible. He's told Nigerians that we can't afford it. But remember, last week on the show, he said, look, this thing is beyond me. It's between federal government and Labour. So the real clog in the wheel is Labour, but Labour also, they have constituents that they have to represent. But the economics just doesn't make sense. But NNPC, just to put that out there, Blair Kyari has been as transparent as he can be. He just said we can't afford it.
Well, very quickly, the NNPC and the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timi Silva, they've given more than enough warning. They've been on this for about a year, and it is not new. Even under the Jonathan administration, the point was made repeatedly that the subsidy regime in Nigeria was unsustainable.
2012.
And today, it is still unsustainable.
Right.
And the whole point, the whole argument is that, okay, what kind of model do you use? And the key question raised by Labour, which Labour still raised, the NLC and the TUC on Saturday at the May Day celebration on May 1. Well, they didn't call it a celebration. Joe Ajero, who was with me yesterday, said it was a day of lamentation. But the whole point is that, look, you have crude oil in Nigeria, and then you use an import parity pricing system. What they are asking for is that a home production-based pricing system. And the position of Labour is that if that is the case, then, of course, the kind of subsidy that we're paying will not pay up to that, or will be able to address the challenge. Now, NNPC says it pays about 112 billion naira on a monthly basis to subsidize petroleum consumption. They have the support of Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN. They were in the news a few days ago also, and they were saying, look, there is no way we can keep selling fuel at the pump stations, fuel stations at this amount, that it should be minimum 234. Well, I hope that as government continues to negotiate with Labour And as government continues to inform Nigerians, first it was April, they told us we will have to pay the appropriate price. Now it's been shifted to May. It probably will be shifted again to June. We have to worry about the fallouts. At the moment, the Nigerian employee, the Nigerian worker is complaining, he's lamenting on Labor Day. Now, if you put further pressure from the pump price of petrol side, from the electricity side, with Saliman, the Minister of Power, say, oh, what we're just doing is a small adjustment in line with the NERC Act. The pressure could be so much, the inflation rate could go up so high that, in fact, we'll have to worry about the social side of it. As for
Honeywell,
okay, yes. I looked at that statement. That statement, yes, they were saying, look, we employ about 30,000 Nigerians across about different 5 sectors of the economy. Very strategic, and we continue to make impact. There's a subtle indication there that, look, if you go after Honeywell, you also think of the implications in terms of how it will affect, both direct employees, over 10,000 of them, and also indirect beneficiaries of the fact that Honeywell has been a big player in this sector since 1972. It's an intelligent point to make. But again, I think that whatever ordeal they are facing is self-inflicted. One lesson that other persons can take away from this is that, look, you don't fight your regulator. Some of the bankers, they tried it with Lamido Sanusi, you recall, when he was CBN governor. And now it's history, more or less, repeating itself. And I hope that at the end of the day, reason will prevail. What Honeywell has tried to do is to defend its reputation and to remind the CBN and government of the costs, the likely cost of descending on that institution. And I also noticed that over the weekend, Mrs. Ibukwa also issued a statement defending her honor, insisting that she acted with integrity. Well, all of that is fine, but all of this could have been avoided if there had been better relationship, better communication with the regulator. Regulatory risk is the biggest risk in doing business in Nigeria. So you don't go and confront your regulator, you could pay a price for it.
And Dr. Abati made a very great point on labor. I'll just add this to it. When we had 18,000 minimum wage, the calculation was 18,000 was going to translate to $120. Now, the 30,000 minimum wage is less than $100. So that's to show you that purchasing power parity has dropped tremendously. And that's why I call for sincerity across board. Have we ever asked ourselves, why did Olusegun Obasanjo bring about this import regime at the NNPC? President Olusegun Obasanjo bring about this, this tariff system with the NNPC when he was president of this country at that point in time. If there was a lot of transparency as regards that, let's ask those questions. Thank you so much for your time. I wrote this, really appreciate it. Michael, we'll move over to you now. Michael Wilson joins us now on Global Business Update. Michael, great to have you.
Good morning. So main markets in China and Japan closed for holiday for the next couple of days. Today, the UK is on holiday and the EU too. However, a lot's been going on. Investors over Asia Pacific have been looking at India. I know you'll be covering this later on, but the increase in cases is massive. 400,000 new daily cases registered for the first time. The first trading day then of the new month has seen the release of Asia-Pacific PMIs. Very mixed, as you'd imagine. China and Japan, as I said, away today. And I think Asia, generally speaking, will remain relatively gloomy. However, Australia, Indonesia, I'm just looking at my list here, Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia and Taiwan all outperformed in April. South Korea retreating very, very slightly. It's a big week for data this week. I'll come on to that slightly later on. So then, as far as the US is concerned, recapping there, despite the long holiday, everything really is pointing towards the non-farm payrolls on Friday, which I'll come on to. Dow Jones futures have risen by about 125 points. S&P up 0.3%. 0.5, despite the kind of weakness in the S&P. The S&P 500 notched its third straight month of gains in April, adding more than 5% to its index over that time. So over the weekend, Warren Buffett and his Berkshire Hathaway fund people have been talking to some of their investors, some stuff online and so on. Overall, he was criticising the casino market and trade apps and so on. This is interesting, and he's not worried about proposed tax hikes in the United States, saying that any company would actually adapt to corporate taxes. Now, again, this is an investor speaking, not a company chairman, although he is, of his own investment company, but this is how investors are encouraged to look at it. But Buffett noted that some companies are trying to fearmonger by saying the tax rules will be passed through to customers. That's not necessarily the case, he says. He says that's a corporate fiction. It's got $70 billion it would love to put to work. He doesn't like SPACs. He does not like digital currencies. He does not like Bitcoin. And basically he's saying, not that I am any person to comment about this, but he's adding to the general view about SPACs is you've got to be really careful about these things. You've got to be looking at what they're going to invest in, and you've got to look really carefully at the track record of the people who are making those investments too. And that's quite big grown-up stuff. So that's what you need a lot of that. Here's a good one for you all in the studio. You'll be knowing this naturally. I'm sure your fleet has been increasing. Super yacht sales are up by 50% as the mega rich are using them as a way to escape the pandemic. Many of them have never thought about owning one before. They are now. Not many people buying super yachts in the EU. The Eurozone's economy has fallen back into recession as the impact hits activity. We're talking about a double-dip recession. The Eurozone, January to March, shrunk by 0.6%. We got those figures late on Friday. As far as the UK is concerned, social distancing will be scrapped from June the 21st. So that means that 1 metre plus gap is not going to be there anymore. That means restaurants, pubs, cinemas, theatres can reopen, but we will be wearing masks. Interesting development from Amazon over the weekend. They're hiring regulation experts because they're on the brink of launching their own cryptocurrency, adding 10,000 new posts in the UK. They've already got their own version of a sort of crypto coin, but the CEO, the new one, Andy Lassie, is interested in crypto apparently. Commodities now. Stand by for a super cycle. Strong demand from China. Bets on greening the economy. The rest of the world picking up the baton from China in terms of global growth. Iron ore, palladium, timber grains, oilseeds, sugar and dairy. Corn prices above $7 a barrel. So there is a super cycle threatened as far as commodities are concerned. Useful to know that. Offers oil, a surprise sell-off, nothing to do with the super cycle I've been talking about, just a rising US dollar because that's what you pay for in oil, as you know, slightly making it more expensive. Gold's relatively unchanged. So the big week coming up then, US farm payrolls. They might print new jobs about 1 million. If we get about 1 million, the stock market will like that a great deal. A lot of people in the United States naturally will like that. But I would caution, still this old figure. It doesn't matter what they add right now. We'd be still between 8 and 7 million jobs short of where we were pre-pandemic. So underemployment actually working quite well. We've got China trade coming out on Friday. That will be extremely important as well, naturally. Export demand's been quite strong. It's really a question of what the economy does internally. And as far as the Bank of England's concerned, meeting on Wednesday and Thursday, interest rate decision, no change there. But it does look as though the prospects of negative interest rates has been kicked a long way down the road. But there might be talk of slightly tapering, but not a lot. That's the global view on this holiday morning. Good morning.
Well, Michael, two things of interest for me. The first is this Apple tax war, with Epic Games going to court to challenge what they allege is Apple's anti-competitive practices. How do you think that will play out, and particularly in terms of the integrity of the App Store? And then secondly, we all waited yesterday to watch that Manchester United-Liverpool match, who could have determined the Premier League one way or the other. But it didn't happen because the fans, for the second time, attacked Old Trafford, took over the place, seized the hotel, the entrance to the hotel where, the players were staying. How good or bad is this rebellion of the fans is for football business in England? Since it's not just Man U that is being targeted, there's also the Cronkies at Arsenal being targeted.
Yeah, I think that, I think most of the people involved in those discussions about football have actually have said to themselves, do you know what, it was a stupid decision, we're leaving the fans behind. Personally, I think the whole lot is bound in a hypocrisy. I'm a Man United fan, always have been, ever since I lived in the north of England when I was a little boy, and the Munich air crash in 1956, 58 rather, which I still remember as a terribly bad memory. The idea that football is to do with the people disappeared when we started paying foreign players, imported players, millions of pounds a year, hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. What's that got to do with anything? That's just got to do with demand and so on. So I think that what the fans actually wanted to do, they were cross because they realised that these people who are running the clubs have no thought about whatsoever to do with the fans. The clubs, the big ones, are all about marketing. They are marketing companies. Now, that's not changed. That didn't change because of the Super League. It's been like that for many, many years. It's been like that since football started playing billions of dollars to get on the television screen. That's been the difference. So it's not you and me going with a little meat pie and a cup of tea to a match locally. We're watching it on the television. So, of course, the fans would take a big op. It was probably one of the biggest matches. I was also looking forward to seeing it yesterday afternoon as well. And it was postponed, as you well know, when it's going to be picked up. I don't know. It is a major football match, but there's something rotten at the heart of all this, and it will come out, definitely, no question about that. But to think that it's something new with the Super League, not true. Football is about commerce and it's about the money. And when I first started talking to you about this, I've been saying that consistently. You want to know about football? Follow the money.
Tell them, Michael.
I asked you about
Epic
Apple,
Games,
the Apple
please.
tax war.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Apple tax?
Yeah, okay. So what I feel there, the Apple, Facebook, Twitter are all on this cusp of having big challenges made out to them. They want to mine your data. There's no question about that. You know what's happening as far as Apple are concerned, and the ad business, which is now going to take on Facebook and reduce their revenue, because you can actually diss the ads that you don't want to see, and you can also, as I understand it, have some sort of control over what kind of data people get of you personally. My thought about this is, again, if you want to get involved in it, then you go on social media, and it's down to you. It's perfect freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. You don't want to get involved in it, they don't go on social media. Use Apple if you wish to purchase things. That's completely up to you. But know that those logarithms are after you. That's how they make their money. Same with Amazon. It all started, I've told you this hundreds of times before, when I first interviewed Jeff Bezos, and I said him, what's the secret? He said, it's 25 years ago. Oh, no, actually 20 years ago. Let's be realistic about this. He said, I went into a store. They didn't have what I wanted. It was a record store. But the assistant said to me, if you like that, we don't have it, but you might like this. That's what they do. They get right down to the core of what you want to do. You want to get involved in that? You go online. You don't want to go involved in that? Visit your local store.
All right, amazing stuff there. And good, it's good as a Man U fan, you told other football fans the height of their hypocrisy yesterday, because I am sick to my gut about that level of hypocrisy. Like they don't like the good foreign players that are coming into the league. But I want to talk about two things. I'm scared about America's growth. Warren Buffett too is saying the same. This growth that is bringing a lot of inflation, that's bringing a backlog, that is increasing the deficit, and Joe Biden's plan of paying back looks very, very, very nebulous to me. I don't get it. And secondly, I want to talk a little bit about China and China's understanding of capitalism. It's growing, but it's stifling its own business. We've talked about this before. But when is something going to give in China?
All right, so I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know enough about China, nor does anybody. The only people who know about China basically are the Chinese Communist Party who run it, because it's an autocracy. It's a communist state. I agree with you completely that when we see where Jack Ma ends up, when we see what high-tech does. When we see the escape of high-tech companies to listing elsewhere, as they're beginning to do, we talked about this last week, and they're beginning to list in Hong Kong, but they're certainly beginning to list on Wall Street as well. I don't get it. I don't understand how you operate a communist country with capitalist fringes. That has to be a problem. So what's the answer? Self-interest is the answer. Follow the money. That's the key. What will happen? I think that what will happen is China's been baring its teeth. The wolf warriors, as they've been called by the United States. There's a lot of confrontation going on. I feel as though this confrontation cannot continue. I don't think it'll end up in a war. I think it'll more end up in the trade of self-interest. And we need China. You need China. The United States needs China as well, because it is still the manufacturing shop of the world, whether you like it or not. So, but they also would like to have a part of. They are in the World Trade Organization. We know that, but they would like a part at the table of the G7. They'd like to see themselves actually involved in what we either laughingly or seriously take as being major institutions. Once they want to do that, then we can say to them, all right, well, what you've got to do is you've got to play by these kind of rules. That's what I see going on as far as China's concerned. As far as the United States is concerned, Joe Biden's big message, big government is back. Now, like it or not, that's what's happening. And the corporate competitive America is now a thing of the past. I think you can draw a line and say he's going to try to rebuild it. Will that involve it taxing rich people? Yes, it will. Will it involve corporation tax? Well, Warren Buffett said he's not too worried about that, because, and I've said, not that I am as good as he is, naturally, I'm not comparing myself to him at all, but I'm just saying I've often mentioned that the corporate United States will find a way of avoiding those kind of margins that are increasing those sort of margins. They're at all attacked by corporation tax. I don't share your worries about inflation yet. I might do, if I may say that, by 3/4 of the way through the year, when the big employment figures started to come. So 1 million jobs created in the United States, maybe on the non-farm payrolls, as I was saying on Friday, that's going to be a biggie. If that starts and the labour market starts to get stretched, then I think we'll get inflation. Until that happens, I don't see it. I see all the signs, but I don't see the demand.
All right. Thank you so much. Time will tell. I'll remind you of the space. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. I will go straight to Adeso Omorua this morning. Adeso, whoa, great to see you. And you know why I'm saying that.
I know, Rufai. That's a secret between both of us.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Batsi. And good morning to
secret meeting. You should disclose. There should be full disclosure.
No, it's a personal secret. Yes. Oh. It's the world's best kept secret. Adeso has natural hair. That's what Rufai is talking about. But let's talk about the global tally for the coronavirus this morning. The numbers have now surpassed 152 million cases, and nearly 3.2 million people have died from the virus worldwide. Now, India continues to smash global records. In the last day, the country recorded the deadliest day of the pandemic, with a new high of almost 3,700 deaths. Some say Prime Minister Narendra Modi is perhaps starting to pay the price of his handling of the pandemic, as his party lost the crucial state elections over the weekend. But as international aid arrived the country, more travel restrictions are being placed on India by countries around the world. I will tell you more about that in a bit. First, let's take a look at what's happening here in Nigeria. And in the last 24 hours, 14 cases were recorded in the country. That's about the lowest we have seen in months. No data came in from Lagos State for the day, according to the NCDC. And a look at the vaccination updates in Nigeria. The NPHCDA revealed that over 1.2 million Nigerians have now received their first jab of the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine in the first phase across the country. Not much of a difference in vaccination in Anambra, Akwa Ibom, and Sokoto states since the last time we spoke. If you could take a look at the numbers from the states breakdown, those 3 states I mentioned are still below 40% of target population, according to this data by the NPHCDA. Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Regulator in Nigeria NAFDAC has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine for emergency use in the country. It becomes the second coronavirus vaccine getting emergency authorization in Nigeria. And this also comes as the WHO approved the Moderna vaccine for emergency use. The mRNA vaccine from the U.S. manufacturer joins vaccines such as AstraZeneca, Pfizer-BioNTech, and Johnson & Johnson in receiving the Global Health Body's emergency use listing. Now, let's talk about those travel restrictions on India I mentioned earlier. Nigeria will ban entry to non-Nigerian passengers who traveled to India, Brazil, and Turkey in the last 2 weeks, obviously because of the concerns over the rapid spread of coronavirus in those three nations. Now, according to the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, this new travel advisory does not apply to passengers who transited through these countries. It will come into effect from Tuesday, May 4, which is tomorrow, and subject to review after an initial period of 4 weeks. Also, Nigerians and permanent residents who were in those countries mentioned in the last 14 days will have to undergo mandatory quarantine for a week in a government-approved facility on arrival. The steering committee also said that passengers arriving in Nigeria will now have to show a negative COVID-19 test taken within 72 hours of travel rather than the previous 96-hour period that we had in place. Now, the federal government has said those passengers and the airlines who ignored these restrictions, for the airlines, they will be fined $3,500 per passenger if they do bring them into the country. Meanwhile, in Australia, residents and citizens who have been in India will be banned from entering Australia as of Monday. That means it's gone into effect as of now. And those who disobey will face fines and jail term. It is the first time Australia has made it a criminal offense for its own citizens to return home. Talk about taking drastic measures. Now, the move is part of strict measures, of course, to stop travelers to India, Australia rather, from India, as India contends with those surge in cases and deaths. The health minister in Australia, Greg Hunt, announced that anyone attempting to defy these new rules would be hit with fines of up to 66,600 Australian dollars, which is equivalent to 51,800 US dollars, and 5 years in prison or both. And finally, this morning in Kenya, this is a sad story. A doctor who declared the COVID-19 vaccine as unnecessary has died of the coronavirus. Dr. Stephen Karania, who was an obstetrician and a gynecologist, was the chairman of the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association. He advocated steam inhalation and hydroxychloroquine tablets. He died a week after he was admitted to hospital suffering from complications of the COVID-19 infection. He's a known anti-vaxxer in the country. He opposed tetanus and HPV vaccines. And officials in the country actually said that they have encountered vaccine hesitancy as a result of the objections raised by late Dr. Karanja. It's actually sad. No one takes pleasure in this kind of stories, but it's important to also put it out there that, you know, this is real. Vaccines, we've seen real life data. Vaccines actually help with transmission and reduce the risk of death.
Well, let me start with India, because you made a comment that I think we can expand. You were talking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi now paying the price for not paying enough attention to COVID-19 and being more interested in elections. Elections in 5 states. Now, out of the 5 states involved, the results that are coming out indicate that it's only in Assam State that the BJP, as a ruling party, the party of the Prime Minister, has been able to win. In West Bengal, where Mamata Bajapi, the only woman who is a chief minister of one of the states where she was seeking a 3rd term in office, she won very convincingly. In Puchuderi, another party won. In Kerala, another party won. So you see that this is the people of India, you know, making a statement with their votes. We've been talking about lessons we can learn from India about how to handle the pandemic and how to respond to major issues of public concern. But I think that we can also learn a lesson from those elections in those 5 states, where we have seen in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in West Bengal, in Assam, and in Puchuderi, how the people of India have spoken with their votes. So I hope that's a lesson, because I say that because here in Africa sometimes, no matter the level of non-performance of a particular government, that same government can still win by a landslide. And you'll be wondering why this disconnect. Now the Australians, yes, Australia has one of the best records, because as far back as March 2020, they shut down their borders, both to people coming in and people who wanted to go out. And that's why the death toll there is under is under 800 or very low figure. Yes. Now this time around, because of the crisis in India, 1 in 3 persons, India accounts for 1 in 3 cases of infection in the world. And on Saturday, they crossed the 400,000 mark per day, with a total of about 19.3 million infection cases. Now, India has now become a major source of concern to the entire international community. People are sending oxygen tanks there, but they also don't want to go there, nor do they want anybody from there to come. Hence, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, had to initially postpone his trip to India, but eventually he cancelled it. So it's a case of self-preservation. And Hunt, the Minister of Health in Australia, says, look, we took this decision as something that we take very seriously. And that's why they've imposed a fine, of 66,600 Australian dollars. Yes. And there's another lesson there for Nigeria. When you look at our own, the restriction they've placed on Brazil, India, and Turkey travelers, we're imposing a penalty of $3,500. Yes. Okay, why is that not done in Naira? Because the Australians are using their own dollar. They didn't say American dollar. Now, will the Nigerian government begin to conduct its affairs in Naira? However, in Australia, there is this big argument about human rights. Human Rights Watch Australia is saying this is a case of racism, this is a case of criminalization, but I don't think the government is going to listen to that. They say, well, in 2 weeks' time, they will review it again. But first, the safety of the people of Australia is important. Yeah. And it's good to see that Nigeria finally also got to that point. And they are talking about prosecution for persons who do not follow the guidelines. They are talking about penalties for persons who do not follow the guidelines. We just hope that they will be able to enforce their own rules. Because we have had stories also of people arriving in Nigeria and they will be told, why do you even want to do any PCR test? You give money, we'll give you the certificate. So government and the Presidential Steering Committee will have to be very vigilant to make sure that there are no sharp practices around and about, these, well-meaning, proposals, guidelines that they have put in place at this time.
So, I'd like to pick on India, because India is a poster child now for everything that is bad or wrong with the world. Dr. Abad said 1 in 3 people, in fact, it's now 40% I hear of India. So 40% of the world cases of COVID now comes out of India. It's a basket case. The other day on Indian television, they now give alerts when oxygen runs out in hospitals. In fact, over 24 people in a certain hospital in Mumbai died because oxygen ran out. Just imagine people gasping for bed, oxygen ran out, they couldn't get oxygen. The other day, the Embassy of New Zealand had to tweet on Twitter, send a tweet out that, please, we've run out of oxygen here, we need oxygen. Then it became political. The Congress party in India, the India Congress party, now had to send oxygen to them, and BJP was not happy about it. Amidst all of this, the madness that goes on in India is so shocking that people still have time for partisan politics. Despite the fact that Modi has lost most of the states he had stronghold, has lost, like Dr. Vatsel talked about, Puducherry and some other parts of India. He's lost most. West Bengal, that used to be a heartland, lost it because people are angry. There was a polling unit in Uttar Pradesh where they were counting votes. Jesus, you need to see the lack of social distancing. Everybody was cramped together in a space. They had to show it on the Indian television and say, please, people should alert them.
And despite warnings, there have been celebrations as election results have been announced. At some point, India has to decide to pick a battle. As the world struggles to help them, they have to help themselves.
So it's the level of madness that is going on here. And for me, I think the measures should be harder as regards Nigeria. And most importantly, they should also put punitive measures in place for officials that will collaborate with some of these foreign travelers. Because that $3,500 we talked about, some foreign travelers will give officials as bribe and they will put everything under the table.
Well, the penalties for airlines, a passenger, for any airline that violates those guidelines announced by the Presidential Committee.
Thank you so much, Aniswa, for your time.